Have you ever sat in your kitchen in the morning looking at the breakfast you have eaten for years and wondered why your creatinine just keeps climbing, no matter how careful you try to be? If that question makes your stomach tighten a little, you're not alone. I've spent over 30 years talking with patients who were doing everything right, yet their kidney numbers were silently getting worse. And here's the truth. No one has ever told you plainly. Your breakfast, the meal you believe is the safest, may be quietly pushing your kidneys toward exhaustion. I know that sounds dramatic, but the data coming out of Cleveland Clinic, Harvard, and Mayo Clinic is painting a picture that's impossible to ignore. Certain breakfast foods that most Americans trust, even ones labeled heart healthy or good for energy, can force your kidneys to work harder at the exact moment they're at their weakest. And for people over 50, especially those already dealing with swelling fatigue, high blood pressure, blood sugar issues, or early CKD, this single morning mistake can determine the entire direction of your health. Some of my patients only discovered the damage when the symptoms became impossible to ignore, and by then the recovery was much harder. But here's the part I want you to hear clearly, because it's the reason I made this video. You can turn this around starting tomorrow morning, not with complicated diets, not with expensive supplements, and not with giving up everything you enjoy. I'm going to walk you through 3 simple breakfast habits and 5 kidney-safe proteins that have helped thousands of my patients lower their creatinine, reduce inflammation, regain their energy, and finally feel like their kidneys aren't working against them anymore. And as we go, I'll show you the tiny choices, the ones most people overlook, that make the biggest difference. Because once you understand what your body's trying to tell you each morning, everything changes. When most people think about protecting their kidneys, they never imagine that the very first thing they eat each morning could determine how hard those kidneys will have to work for the rest of the day. But steel-cut oats with fresh berries are one of those rare breakfasts that act less like food and more like a quiet rescue mission inside your body. I remember a woman named Linda from Ohio who told me she woke up every morning feeling heavy, swollen, and foggy. Her creatinine wasn't in the danger zone yet, but it was rising bit by bit, and she was terrified of hearing the word dialysis for the first time. And when we went through her morning routine, her struggles suddenly made sense. She started every day with pastries, instant oatmeal packets, and healthy granola bars that were flooding her system with sugars and minerals her kidneys had to filter immediately. So we changed just one thing. I had her switch to a warm bowl of steel-cut oats topped with blueberries and strawberries. And within a few weeks, she felt lighter, clearer, more regular, and genuinely energized. That wasn't luck. That was pure physiology. Steel-cut oats contain beta-glucan, a soluble fiber shown in Purdue University research to help remove uremic toxins by nearly 20%. It moves slowly through your gut like a sponge trapping waste before it ever cycles back to your kidneys. And the berries. Their anthocyanins travel directly to kidney tissue, acting like tiny shields against oxidative stress, the same kind of stress that slowly damages kidney filters year after year. If your mornings feel sluggish or your creatinine refuses to drop, this breakfast might be the missing link. But knowing this is only the beginning, because there's another morning protein mistake most Americans make, and this one can be even more dangerous. And once you understand how the right breakfast can completely change the way your kidneys start their day, it becomes even clearer why the second option works so powerfully. Scrambled egg whites with bright red and yellow bell peppers. This simple combination has saved more of my patients from creatinine spikes than almost any other morning meal. I think about a man named Raymond from Arizona, a retired firefighter who loved big hearty breakfasts. But those breakfast choices were pouring phosphorus into his system more than his kidneys could safely filter. His blood work showed it clearly. His phosphorus levels were climbing, and the strain was dragging his creatinine up with it. So we stripped his breakfast down to something clean, gentle, and incredibly effective. Egg whites gave him pure, complete protein with almost zero phosphorus, just 5 milligrams compared to over 60 in the yolk. And then we added red and yellow bell peppers. Most people don't realize this, but those colors make all the difference. As peppers ripen, their vitamin C and carotenoid levels skyrocket. Red peppers in particular carry up to 3 times the antioxidants of green ones. And those antioxidants travel straight to the kidneys, reinforcing the collagen structure that keeps your filters strong and resilient. Within a month, Raymond saw his energy return. His labs stabilized. Even his morning stiffness eased up. It was the first time he felt real control over his health in years, all from choosing a breakfast that supported his kidneys instead of punishing them. And yet, as powerful as this combination is understanding, it is only one piece of the puzzle, because there's another breakfast habit most Americans overlook, and the impact it has on your kidneys might surprise you even more. Once you see how a simple protein swap can transform your kidney numbers, it becomes easier to understand why the third breakfast works so unbelievably well, a blueberry chia smoothie made with unsweetened almond milk. It tastes like dessert, but inside your body, it behaves more like a treatment. I think about Marie, a 63-year-old grandmother from Florida, who told me she woke up every day with swollen fingers and a heavy pressure in her lower back. Her potassium and phosphorus were climbing, and every latte she started her morning with was making things worse. When I suggested replacing it with a simple kidney-safe smoothie, she was skeptical but agreed to try it for 2 weeks. The change surprised even her. Almond milk alone removed more than 200 milligrams of phosphorus from her daily routine compared to regular milk. Blueberries flooded her system with anthocyanins, the same anti-inflammatory compounds Harvard researchers found to actively protect kidney tissue from oxidative stress. And then came the real magic, the chia seeds. But not just tossed in whole. I had her grind half of them and keep the other half whole. The ground seeds released omega-3s, instantly calming inflammation within hours, while the whole seeds expanded into a gel in her gut, trapping toxins before they reached her kidneys and feeding the beneficial bacteria that lower inflammation even further. Marie's swelling eased. Her digestion improved. She felt lighter in the mornings than she had in years. And that's why this smoothie has become a daily ritual for so many of my patients. But as powerful as breakfast can be, it's only half the story, because the protein you choose throughout the rest of your day plays an even bigger role. And this next part is where most people unknowingly sabotage their kidneys. Once you understand how balancing your protein throughout the day can lift that invisible pressure off your kidneys, the next logical step is choosing the very first protein source that deserves a place on your plate. And without question, one of the most powerful options is fatty fish, salmon, mackerel, and sardines. These are not just healthy proteins. They behave like kidney protectors. I still remember a patient named Howard, a 66-year-old school bus driver from Minnesota, who came to me exhausted, swollen around the ankles, and worried sick about his rising creatinine. He avoided fish for years because he thought it was too heavy for his stomach. But when we went deeper, we found something much more important. His body was starving for anti-inflammatory support. So I asked him to try 2 small servings of fatty fish each week. Nothing overwhelming, just a few ounces baked or grilled. Within a month, the difference was undeniable. His morning stiffness faded, his energy picked up, and his lab results showed a calmness in his inflammatory markers that we hadn't seen in over a year. That outcome is perfectly in line with the science. Omega-3 fatty acids found in fatty fish have been shown in multiple studies from Harvard and the National Kidney Foundation to reduce systemic inflammation, improve circulation to the kidneys, and decrease filtration pressure, all of which helps stabilize creatinine levels over time. And because fatty fish digests cleanly and provides complete amino acids, it supports muscle strength without dumping excess phosphorus into your system. Howard told me it felt like someone had turned the volume down on the inflammation inside his body, and that's exactly what fatty fish is meant to do. But only knowing this still isn't enough, because the next protein source is something most Americans eat weekly. Yet very few know how to use it correctly for kidney health. Once someone experiences what fatty fish can do for their kidneys, the next protein often surprises them because it's something they've eaten their entire life: eggs. But when used the right way, eggs become one of the most kidney-friendly protein sources available, especially for older adults trying to lower creatinine without sacrificing strength. I think of Sandra, a 71-year-old retired accountant from Nevada, who loved breakfast but felt guilty every time she ate eggs. She had heard so many conflicting messages, cholesterol, heart risk, kidney strain, that she eventually cut them out altogether. And as a result, her muscles weakened, her metabolism slowed, and her labs worsened. When she came to me, I didn't tell her to give up eggs. I told her to use them wisely. We focused on the part that delivers the cleanest protein with the least kidney stress, the egg white. Pure albumin, low phosphorus, and incredibly easy for the body to absorb. 2 egg whites a day gave her enough high-quality protein to protect her muscle mass without overloading her kidneys. And when she did eat the yolk, she limited it to once or twice a week, just enough to benefit from the vitamin D and essential nutrients without raising her phosphorus or cholesterol too quickly. The science backs this up. Studies from the National Kidney Foundation show that egg whites produce less metabolic waste compared to other proteins, reducing filtration pressure and supporting healthier creatinine levels. Within weeks, Sandra felt steadier, stronger, more balanced, and finally relieved that she didn't have to fear a food she loved. But understanding how to use eggs is just one step, because the next protein source is one many people assume is harmless. Yet it can be a silent game changer for your kidneys when you choose it correctly. Once people regain confidence using eggs the right way, the next protein source they often overlook is low-fat dairy, and it's one that can either support your kidneys beautifully or quietly overload them, depending on how you choose it. I remember a patient named Eleanor, a 68-year-old grandmother from North Carolina, who loved her morning yogurt, but couldn't figure out why her creatinine kept rising. When we reviewed her diet, the answer was hiding in plain sight. She was eating flavored yogurt loaded with sugar and high phosphorus additives that her kidneys simply couldn't keep up with. So we made one simple switch. Instead of sugary, heavy options, I had her use plain, low-fat yogurt or reduced-fat milk paired with berries or chia for sweetness. The difference was dramatic. Her digestion eased, her bloating decreased, and her creatinine finally started trending down. And the science lines up perfectly with her results. Research from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition shows that the proteins in low-fat dairy, casein, and whey are absorbed steadily and generate far less metabolic waste than processed meats or high-phosphorus foods. This translates directly into lower filtration pressure on your kidneys. Add to that the natural calcium in vitamin D, and you get a protein source that strengthens bones and muscles without overwhelming kidney function. What made the biggest difference for Eleanor wasn't just the protein, it was removing the hidden sugars and additives that were forcing her kidneys to work overtime. And once those were gone, her energy and clarity returned in a way she hadn't felt in years. But simply switching to low-fat dairy is only part of the story, because the next protein source, one most people assume is too risky for kidney health, can actually become one of your strongest allies when chosen correctly. As soon as people clean up their dairy choices, the next question always lands right on my desk. What about beans and nuts? Aren't they dangerous for the kidneys? And the truth is, they can be if you choose the wrong kinds in the wrong amounts. But when chosen wisely, beans and nuts become some of the most powerful kidney-supporting proteins you can add to your daily routine. I think about Henry, a 72-year-old retired mechanic from Texas, who came to me convinced he had to avoid all plant proteins. He had read so many conflicting articles online that he was afraid even a handful of almonds would push him closer to dialysis. But when we dug deeper into his diet, we discovered the real problem wasn't beans or nuts at all. It was the salty, flavored, heavily processed versions he'd been snacking on. So we rebuilt his approach from the ground up. I had him switch to unsalted almonds, a tablespoon of chia, and small portions of cooked soybeans or lentils spread across the week. And slowly his confidence returned. His energy improved, his blood pressure dropped, and his digestion felt smoother than it had in years. The science supports exactly what he experienced. Plant proteins create less metabolic waste, lower inflammation, and provide fiber that traps toxins before they ever reach the kidneys. A study published by the University of Illinois showed that diets rich in plant proteins improve kidney outcomes by reducing glomerular pressure and supporting healthier filtration patterns. Henry told me it felt like his entire body exhaled once he swapped processed snacks for clean plant-based proteins. But understanding the power of beans and nuts still leaves the most controversial protein for last, a protein many Americans fear using, yet it may be the one that saves their kidneys when used the right way. And once someone finally realizes that plant proteins aren't the enemy, they're ready for the most misunderstood protein of all amino acid-rich supplements like whey protein or BCAAs. This is the one topic that makes nearly every kidney patient nervous, and honestly, I understand why. The internet is full of warnings, confusion, and half-truths. But when used correctly, these supplements can become one of the cleanest, safest, and most effective protein sources for anyone trying to lower creatinine while keeping their strength. I think of Olivia, a 65-year-old former nurse from Colorado who was terrified to touch protein powder. She told me she felt her body getting weaker every month, but she didn't know how to increase her protein without stressing her kidneys. Her biggest fear was ending up on dialysis because she simply chose the wrong supplement. So we started slowly. One small scoop of high-quality whey, isolate mixed with water or unsweetened almond milk, nothing fancy, nothing extreme. And within a few weeks, her body responded in a way she didn't expect. Her legs felt steadier. Her stamina improved. Her creatinine stabilized. And the reason is simple, pure protein powders create far less metabolic waste than heavy meats or processed foods. Research from the Mayo Clinic shows that when older adults replace part of their daily protein with clean amino acids, they reduce filtration pressure and protect their kidneys over the long term. These supplements digest quickly, deliver essential amino acids directly to muscle tissue, and avoid the phosphorus overload found in many traditional protein sources. Olivia told me she felt like she had finally found a way to support her muscles without punishing her kidneys, a balance she had spent years trying to achieve. But even with all 9 of these strategies, there's still one final truth you need to hear. Because the biggest transformation doesn't come from food alone, but from the decision you make after watching this video. You've just learned 9 of the most powerful kidney protective habits I've seen across my entire medical career. And if you've made it all the way here, I want you to take a moment to acknowledge yourself. Most people ignore the warning signs. Most people wait until the pain gets louder or until the lab numbers climb higher. But you didn't. You took a step that many never take. You chose to understand your body before it forces you into a corner. And that alone says so much about your strength, your discipline, and your desire to stay healthy for the people you love. But remember, this knowledge only becomes transformation when you act on it. So choose one of the breakfasts we talked about. Choose one protein source you'll add tomorrow. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be consistent. Your kidneys don't heal overnight, but they respond beautifully when you give them even a little relief each day. Small choices stack up. Small choices change lab numbers. And small choices prevent big consequences. Before you leave, do something for your future self. Save this video so you can come back to the steps whenever you need them. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and turn on your notifications. I release new medical guidance every week, clear, practical, science-based tips designed specifically to help you protect your kidneys, lower creatinine, reduce inflammation, and stay independent as you age. Don't miss the information that could spare you from dialysis years down the road. And finally, I want you to remember this. Your story isn't defined by your numbers. Your kidneys are not doomed. You have far more control over your health than you've been led to believe. One good decision tomorrow morning could be the beginning of a completely different future. You're not alone in this, and you're stronger than you think.